moral things and things that are immoral, if there is this side or that side. It can't be left up to thought process. I'm an enforcer on this side. I'm not only on God's side.
Game, you think your relationship is repairable? I don't know what really caused it, big. So, I'm not.
There are interviews that go viral for a few days before fading into internet history, and then there are interviews that seem to grow more important with every passing month. At the beginning of 2024, comedian Katt Williams sat down for a conversation that quickly became one of the most talked about interviews of the year. At first, many viewers treated it as another entertaining appearance from someone known for his bold opinions and unfiltered personality. His remarks sparked debates, generated countless memes, and spread rapidly across social media. But as months went on and major entertainment stories continued to dominate headlines, something unexpected happened. Millions of people returned to that same interview, not because it was funny, but because they began wondering whether some of Katt's broader observations about the entertainment industry had become more relevant than they initially seemed. Whether viewers believed he had remarkable insight or simply benefited from hindsight, one thing became impossible to ignore. The conversation had taken on an entirely new life. One statement in particular became the centerpiece of countless online discussions. Katt suggested that 2024 would be a year when hidden truths would come into the open, and that people who had spent years avoiding public scrutiny would eventually face difficult questions. He didn't present this as a prediction tied to a single individual, but rather as a broader commentary on accountability and transparency. At the time, reactions were mixed. Some applauded his willingness to challenge powerful institutions, while others dismissed the comments as another example of his outspoken style. Yet as new headlines emerged throughout the year, involving legal proceedings, investigations, and renewed public attention on influential figures in entertainment, many viewers revisited those earlier clips with a completely different perspective. Suddenly, comments that once sounded provocative were being analyzed frame by frame, with audiences asking whether Katt had simply recognized patterns that others had overlooked.
Not been funded. They pay you to not talk about things they don't want you to talk about. They tell you that themselves.
The timing of this renewed interest also coincided with growing public conversations about accountability within the entertainment industry. Over the past several years, audiences have become increasingly interested in examining how fame, influence, and power operate behind the scenes. Social media has made it easier than ever for old interviews, forgotten clips, and archived news reports to resurface whenever major stories break. A single comment made years earlier can suddenly find millions of new viewers overnight, especially if people believe it connects to current events. This phenomenon isn't unique to Katt Williams, but his interview became one of the clearest examples of how the internet can reinterpret older conversations through the lens of new developments. Whether those interpretations are accurate is often a matter of debate, but the public fascination itself became a story.
Attention grabbing. The series, with the film.
I mean, I think the intention is to give a more full-bodied experience to what happened, you know, from the people that agreed to sit down and to participate. And I feel like the film asks a lot of questions, you know, maybe more questions are asked than answers given.
As discussions intensified online, another major development added even more attention to the broader conversation. Rapper and entrepreneur 50 Cent announced a documentary centered on Sean Diddy, a project that immediately attracted significant public interest. Given the long history of public disagreements between the two figures, many people wondered what perspective the documentary would present and whether it would introduce information that audiences hadn't previously seen. Promotional interviews surrounding the project emphasized extensive research, numerous interviews, and a timeline spanning several decades. While the documentary itself focused on publicly discussed events and allegations, its release reignited broader conversations about celebrity culture, influence, and accountability. It also encouraged many viewers to revisit older interviews from various entertainers, searching for comments that they felt carried new meaning in light of recent events. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this entire story wasn't any single interview or documentary, but rather the role that the internet played in connecting separate events. Every time a new headline appeared, social media users began searching through years of archived footage, looking for moments that seemed connected. Short video clips accumulated millions of views, often accompanied by captions suggesting that someone had predicted everything. In reality, many of these interpretations reflected hindsight, with audiences assigning new significance to statements made long before current events unfolded. The conversations became even more intense because Katt's interview left many of his comments deliberately broad. Rather than focusing exclusively on specific individuals, he often spoke about larger themes involving success, power, competition, and the entertainment industry as a whole. That lack of specificity created room for interpretation, and once social media entered the equation, countless theories began circulating. Online communities debated which public figures Katt may have been referring to, while others argued that viewers were reading far too much into comments that were never meant to identify particular people. It's important to recognize that many of these theories remain speculative and have not been substantiated by evidence. Nevertheless, the discussions themselves became part of the phenomenon, fueling even greater curiosity about what Katt intended and why his interview continued to resonate months after it first aired. By the middle of 2024, what had started as a viral interview had evolved into something much larger. It had become a cultural reference point whenever conversations about accountability, celebrity influence, or hidden aspects of the entertainment business emerged. Even people who had never watched the original interview began hearing about it through reaction videos, podcasts, news segments, and social media discussions. The interview transformed from a moment of entertainment into a topic of ongoing public analysis, with audiences continuing to debate whether Katt had identified broader trends before they became obvious, or whether people were simply connecting unrelated events after the fact. Either way, curiosity surrounding his comments showed no signs of slowing down, and that was only the beginning of a much larger conversation. As interest in Katt Williams' interview continued to grow, another major development helped keep the conversation in the spotlight. The announcement and release of 50 Cent's documentary about Sean Diddy Combs drew immediate attention, not only because of its subject matter, but also because of the long-running public rivalry between the two artists. For years, 50 Cent had openly criticized Combs through interviews and social media, so many viewers were curious about how his perspective would shape the project. Rather than simply revisiting familiar headlines, the documentary promised a broader examination of events spanning decades, encouraging audiences to revisit past interviews, public statements, and media coverage with fresh eyes. One topic that attracted particular attention during the documentary's promotion involved references to behind-the-scenes footage. In interviews discussing the project, filmmakers spoke about reviewing a significant amount of material while researching the documentary. Reports that additional footage existed beyond what ultimately appeared on screen quickly became another subject of online discussion. Some fans began wondering what other material might exist, while others questioned whether future projects could include content that had not yet been released. At this stage, however, much of that conversation remained speculative, as no comprehensive archive of unreleased footage has been made publicly available. Still, the possibility alone was enough to spark countless discussions across YouTube, podcasts, and social media. This is where the internet's tendency to connect unrelated pieces of information became especially noticeable. Every new interview, podcast appearance, or documentary clip inspired viewers to revisit older videos that had largely faded from public memory. Moments that had received little attention years earlier suddenly accumulated millions of views as audiences searched for connections. Clips featuring conversations between artists, comedians, journalists, and former industry insiders were widely shared, often accompanied by dramatic captions suggesting they had taken on entirely new significance. In many cases, these videos documented genuine public interactions that had occurred years before. However, the conclusions people drew from them often reflected personal interpretation rather than verified evidence, illustrating how quickly online narratives can develop when audiences begin connecting separate events into a larger story. Another reason these discussions gained so much momentum was because they extended beyond any single documentary or interview. Increasingly, people began asking broader questions about celebrity culture itself. Why do certain stories remain hidden for years before suddenly becoming front-page news? How does influence shape public perception? And why do old interviews often seem more meaningful only after major events have already occurred? These questions resonated with audiences because they addressed issues much larger than any one individual. They reflected growing public interest in understanding how power, reputation, and media coverage interact within the entertainment industry. Social media amplified these conversations in ways that traditional media rarely could. A single 30-second clip posted on one platform could inspire hours of discussion across dozens of podcasts, reaction channels, and live streams. Creators analyzed body language, compared interviews recorded years apart, and examined public statements for recurring themes. Some of these analyses focused on verifiable facts, while others ventured into speculation. The challenge for viewers was distinguishing between documented information and theories developed through online discussion. That distinction became increasingly important as viral posts frequently blurred the line between confirmed reporting and audience interpretation.